When it comes to being socially responsible, part of that has to do with equipping individuals and schools with the right kind of connectivity, as well as in other countries. Walk me through what kind of demand in that respect and the growth you're seeing in that area.
No, yeah, thank you very much. Great to be on the show. I think that for us, we embarked on our new business strategy in 2018, and we already there outlined that we have 4 stakeholders that we create our strategy for. Shareholders, customers, employees, and our society, and they are tied together, and they all are important for our success as a company. Of course, that has been accentuated as we come into this triple crises that we have at the moment, that you really see that you are taking decisions that have a long-term positive impact on all your stakeholders. And for obviously reasons, we have so much more remote learning, telemedicine, and things like that happening at the same time. And of course, having demand from organization to support them on it. For us, we have been already working a lot with digital inclusion. And since 2012, we have invested $535 million in STEM education, broadband, etc., for underprivileged schools that don't have it today. And this is just a continuation. What we're now packaging in this Citizen Verizon is that all our efforts we're doing in digital inclusion, climate protection, and human prosperity, which all are part of our strategy. So it's more that we now are getting that in one way of actually talking to our customers, to our employees, and to our society, and to our shareholders.
Hans, it's Guy in London. Do you think your company is walking the walk, though, when it comes to actually making significant changes within your own business? You're talking about becoming carbon neutral. Some of that's going to be via offsets. Is that really the right message? Offsets, some people say, are a rather easy way of achieving carbon neutral positions. And when it comes to senior management as well, the biggest message we can send to society as businesses is look at our senior management teams, look at what we're doing. Do you think you're doing enough on that front as well?
You know, you can never say that you're doing enough. We are in an unprecedented time. Your decisions will be measured over a 10-year period by all your stakeholders that you're doing the right things. I think we have a strategy that is supporting what we're doing today. And the carbon neutral, for example, we were the first out doing a green bond last year in the telecom industry of €1 billion. We cannot change some of our plans physically, so we need to offset that. But over time, we're of course working to see that we are carbon neutral in everything we're doing and not offsetting it only by buying certificates, etc. But I think the certificates is an important catalyst for large corporations to see that we are doing the right things when they're so important, and the private sector is also taking social responsibility. Let's face it, companies like Verizon, we're gigantically large. We have a huge responsibility. We have 135,000 employees. We probably have a supply chain of millions of people relying on us, and thousands and 100,000 of suppliers. If we can impact those, we can move more than a government can do in many cases, and that's what we're doing. But again, it's part of our strategy. I don't see this as philanthropy and we give money over here, and as soon as we have tight times, we don't do it. So for us, this is important. We can always do more, but we definitely have a clear strategy in this area.
So Hans, I feel like if this conversation was taking place 8 months ago, we'd talk about what steps you're taking to be carbon neutral. But with Black Lives Matter and what's happened in the middle of the pandemic to minority populations, the conversation today is what are you doing to diversify your board? Will you unveil specific either targets or at least release senior management statistics on diversity and any concrete plans on how to change it, something like a quota?
So as I became the chairman for 1 year ago, we already had worked with the diversity of our board, and I'm fortunate I have 3 black leaders in my board out of 9. And I also have a high degree of females. So I think I have a really diverse team in my board. On management, I think I say like Doug McMillan, you're never finished with this. We have a high degree of people of color, etc., in our organization, and also high up in the ranks. But we can always do more, and we will continue to do so, because in times like this, I mean, the racial injustice, nobody can say they're done and have done it right. You just need to step up your work right now, and that's what we are doing, and hopefully many other corporations as well.
Hans, what does Facebook need to do to get your business back? What does Facebook need to do to change the relationship with you and so many other companies? What are you hearing? You're obviously talking to the company on a fairly regular basis, but you made a high-profile decision, obviously, to pull out. Where are you now?
No, I think what happened was that there were content that were coming close to our advertising that is not appropriate for us. We have a clear commercial agreement with Facebook, what can show up next to us and not. This was clearly not in the commercial agreement. We have a brand that we think is enormously important to us, and we have trust and innovation as our brand values. So when we saw that, we communicated to Facebook, we need to take a pause until you find a remedy. We are continuously talking to Facebook right now to find those remedies. We haven't done it yet, but you're right, we talk to Facebook all the time. We had the same sort of incident with YouTube for 2 years ago, which we solved. Hopefully we'll solve this with Facebook as well. But again, for us, our brand is so important. We cannot show up next to content that we are not supporting or are so far away from our core values.
So what would make you do it? Like, what would you have to hear from Facebook to have more confidence?
We have a list of a couple of things that we're discussing with them, both from a remedy point of view, from the technology, both from monitoring, etc. And we are working that through with them in our contractual discussions. So that has not been solved yet, but our teams are talking basically on a daily basis to see that we can solve this.
Hans, I just want to ask you a quick question about what you're seeing in terms of customers in the United States. I appreciate that earnings are coming up, but we're seeing a series of states shutting down. We're seeing lockdowns being reimposed. Can you just give us an idea of what patterns you're seeing in terms of the business and network traffic that is changing as a result of that? And do you have any kind of predictions as to where we're going in the United States in terms of further lockdowns? What are you seeing in terms of maybe pre-positioning?
If we talk about the network, of course, we have seen changes in the network that are staggering. I mean, if you measure pre-COVID to, let's say, in April, May, we were up 1,200% of collaboration tools in the network, video conferencing, etc., which is, of course, enormous lot of growth. We also saw a lot of usage of gaming, streaming services growing more than 100%. We had also 800 million calls a day, which is double the amount that we had on Mother's Day, which is our peak day of the year, and 9 billion text messages a day for a while, which is more than we have on New Year's Eve. That has slowed down a little bit, but we still are on all-time high numbers in some of our different applications used in the network. So the network is keeping up very well with it, but we clearly see a different pattern. The other thing is what we've seen is the mobile handoffs, meaning people moving between radio cells. That was down at the peak some 35%, meaning 35% less movement in the United States. And some states like New York were down more than 50%. That has slowly come back, and the last measurement they had is down 20%. Some states are back to normal. Then, of course, now you see a resurgence of this pandemic in certain states. So we're going to see when we measure again if that has now brought the mobility down in those states, because that's what it's all about when you have a lot of pandemic and infections in your state. But that we will come back to when we have measured again.
Hans, I just would ask you to put on the CEO/politic hat for a second as we round out the interview here. With Vice President Biden starting to lead in many, many polls, the path of least resistance seems to be a higher corporate tax rate. Are you prepared to pay a higher corporate tax rate in order to offset public initiatives?
First of all, I mean, I'm not into politics. I mean, the citizen on the US will vote whoever's going to win. Whoever's going to win have the mandate to take the decisions, and then you comply with those decisions. So I don't have an opinion about whatever. I mean, the citizens of the United States will vote who they think should run the country, and then corporations like ours, we will comply with the rules and regulations that will be implied with us. So I think that's how I view it, and we are having business in many countries. So this is how we actually are doing in all countries.
Yep. Hans, one final quick question from me as well. The UK has changed its attitude today towards Huawei and is going to withdraw Huawei kits from being applied to UK networks. What effect are these kinds of decisions going to have on your business? Do you think the availability of equipment is going to become more difficult? Do you think the 5G networks can be rolled out, both in Europe and the United States, as quickly as maybe politicians want, without the 5G equipment coming from Huawei?
In our case, I mean, talking with Verizon, I don't see any impact for us in that case. I mean, we're not using any Chinese equipment, so I don't see any problems. We have secured our supply chain with our suppliers, and they are supplying us very well. Now we're getting up to volume, so I don't see any impact directly on Verizon.